Let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome back to Thicc Radio, the podcast where we talk about gaining, feedism, and everything in its orbit. I'm James.
And I'm Tim, so let's get into it. Today we're welcoming to the show for the first time. Today we've got Mona.
Hello.
Ooh, baby. Hey, Mona. How you doing?
Oh, fabulous. How are you?
Good. All the better for seeing you, my love. I feel like it's been far too long, but that's COVID time for you.
Last time we saw each other was last week, but on the whole, yeah, it's been like forever.
I know. It's been far. It's been literal months. I thought you were dead. The pandemic, it swept us all into a post-apocalyptic situation, according to LaShawn Beyond. So I'm just glad we're all here alive to hold each other closely and intimately for today's episode.
Oh, I love how seductively you ended that. I love it.
Okay, calm down, Mary.
Me calming down, that's not possible.
I wasn't referring to you. I was referring to James.
Oh.
Maybe I'm always
calming down? That's impossible as well.
Just if the listeners aren't aware, James is usually turned up to 11 for most conversations that we have.
Yeah, if this is your first time tuning into this, get ready. But Nina, we are so glad to have you today because, you're an old friend at this stage. And Tim, she's very old. She's a very old friend. And I thought what might be really good to talk to you about, because you're in a bit of a similar boat to us, where your growth and gains are not on the express lane, shall we say. Your gains take a little bit more time to ramp up, which does not decry them or devalue them. And listen, people, we've said this on the podcast far too many times to count, and we'll keep on saying it. Slow gains are valid gains. Only wanting to gain to 200 pounds, also very valid. Let's stop gatekeeping. Let's stop gain shaming. Let's let people do what they want to do, period, full stop, snatched, feeding your nerve, yes, God, mama. The house down boots work. Great. But we brought you on because we want to have this conversation. We want to be able to explore this narrative of what I think we can safely call casual gaining versus vigorous gaining, right? And I think to kind of clarify on those points, like I say, it's not that the gains come on slowly because effort isn't being put in, Though I think that can also be a factor for some people. People have children, people have full-time jobs where they're very active, people travel a lot. They don't want to spend all of their money on food and get fat right now. They want to spread it all out a little bit, But I do think a lot of it has to do with genetics more so, right? Because you'll see the Instagram feed. She puts butter in everything. She eats big. She's getting the calories. The pounds, they're taking a while to catch up because that's just the genetic factor, right? So that's where we're kind of going with this. We've got the casual and we've got the vigorous. So to kick that off, how do you approach your own gaining journey?
So, first of all, I just want to say, if you hear any weird background noise, that's my cat. He's currently got the zoomies right now. So if you just hear random running and thudding and all, that's him. Anyway, how I approach my games, I'm of the type of if it happens, it happens. If not, I'm not gonna cry over spilled milk, unless I'm actively using the milk, in which case then I'll cry over it. But yeah, for me, I've always been it's difficult. My body's stubborn as a bull. The animal, not a bowl of cereal. But it's really is, it can be difficult. And at times it's felt discouraging when I haven't hit necessarily a number I want. So I've just sort of changed my mindset of, you know what, I'm not going to worry about the numbers. I'm not going to focus on that. I'm just going to focus on enjoying the food. Because for me, food is more than just a means for gaining. Again, like if they happen, it happens. If not, I still got a good meal out of it, right? So that's sort of my mentality towards it. I mean, I've been on my baseline 215, 220 for 7 years now.
I was stuck at I think it was 215 or 220 for quite a while.
Right.
You know, and I was wondering, so like, do you still keep an image in your head of like what you would like to look like still? Like, do you still think like I will finally be happy when I'm around this particular size and shape?
Yeah. So for me, I would like to get to super chub status. If it happens, great. But eventually I'd like to get to 300. I feel like that's like a just decent, like midway point for me. Like if I can push myself to get there, great. But again, I listen to my body, and I do what it kind of tells me to do. It's weird because like I am me and my body is me as well, but like that aspect of like just the biological basis of what my body's telling me. So again, but like if I don't get there, I'm not gonna be upset about it, because as long as I have some growth, it's growth nonetheless. That's how I see it.
I think that's good. I think it's good to have an idea of what you want and aim towards it, especially for people like us who struggle to gain weight so naturally. Because I think in a community where, we do tend to uplift and celebrate, and we've said this before, we uplift and celebrate primarily people who rapid gain very quickly, are very good at what they do. It doesn't leave people like ourselves a lot of room to kind of like learn and grow. So I do think there needs to be that element of like community amongst more casual gainers, slower gainers, just to kind of edify each other. I
Yes.
won't name any names, of course, but I think there are a few people I know who I try to give a bit of love to and a bit of extra love to intentionally, because I can acknowledge the struggle is real, the growth is hard, and people who will turn around and say to me, thank you for the love, because they don't feel like they're getting it anywhere else. And I think that says something, that sometimes we really do leave people behind in the community, and maybe we could afford to do that less, I want to ask, for people who maybe approach more vigorous gaining, do you feel like those types of people tend to be more into the sort of pig king aspect of gaining, where they're just like, feed me, fatten me, make me unhealthy? Do you feel like people who approach it more casually are more concerned about their health? Like, basically, are there trends that you notice between different styles and approaches to gaining?
I feel like the ones who do more rapid and vigorous gaining tend to have much more of a drive to do so. And that's not to say like I don't, because I'm a casual gainer. I have the drive, but like I have to deal with life, and just currently how my life is, I can't dedicate to that vigorous gaining. But I think it's, and I wouldn't necessarily say unhealthy as well. I think it's for people, I think those who go for more vigorous, rapid, quick gains, I guess you could say active gaining, are the types that I think are good showmen. They're like, I don't want to say they're selling themselves, because they're not doing it like that, but it's like they know how to market themselves. They know how to use their appetite, and they know how to gear their gains towards the feedism community.
I can totally agree with that. Like I feel that some of the more well-known people that gain very quickly are people who were blessed with a sort of universal appeal, so that they could capitalize on it and know that people would actually pay for it.
It's sort of like within the bear community, you've got these people who it's like they're always traveling. How are they always traveling? How are you always on holiday? Like, it makes no sense. But I think this is where it becomes important to remind ourselves everything you see is constructed. And we do the same thing. Like, when I post a selfie of me looking fat, I've probably taken 5 to 10, like rapid click, 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 click. And then I've just picked the best one out of that. We all do it. It's like when you first start gaining, you always take low angle shots so you can show that 1.5 pounds you gained and pushing your stomach out as much as you can. Like, yes, we all do it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it, right? I think it's important to acknowledge these differences, not because difference needs to divide us, but because difference can unite us. I think the confidence and the ways in which a certain type of gainer presents themselves and garners, a following and friendships and opportunities from that, we can learn from in order to figure out, well, how can we take what we do and market that in a similar way? And for them as well, because of our slower style of gaining, we all probably find the more minute changes in growth we take much more notice of because nothing else has happened, but all of a sudden my tits are folding over, or there's a new roll on the side, or my thighs have become more dimpled, or there's like a little something that's happened that we had come across. We notice it because of that slower gain. So they could take a page out of our books. It's not to say slow your rollers, but take more opportunity to lavish yourself in your progress and growth rather than focusing on hitting numbers or achieving rapidity, that kind of thing,
And those little moments can be so great because like I bought a pair of shorts over the summer and the crotch has been completely blown out thanks to Chub Rub. So and that's kind of the first time that's ever happened. It's like the tops of my thighs now rub together so badly that they are wearing away fabric.
Proud of you, hon.
So I do want to ask something though that is maybe more on the controversial side. And I think anyone listening maybe has their own opinion on the validity of this statement. But Mona, we'll put you in the firing line for this one and we'll ask you the question. Do you think the community preferences one style of gaining over the other?
Yes. 100% yes. And it's the type that is capitalized upon. It's the people who aggressively, it's the people, and again, I'm not saying this is bad. This is, again, people have preferences, and preferences are preferences. People just have them, and that's not inherently wrong. But I do think that the gainer community wants to see the gains, and see that progress that you can't necessarily see with the more casual. Like, again, I've been stuck at 215, 220 for 7 years. I got jiggle. That's it. I don't got fresh stretch marks. I don't have chub rub. I've never worn out pants. It's not like all my clothes fit, stuff like that. So it's like, for me, I would be horrible at marketing it. Like, that's just me. And I'm okay with that. But like, and I even preference people who can sometimes gain faster and are able to show that, because it's still, for me, it's like, I want to be that. So I think the more visual, because for us, fetism is not like leather where you can just take it off. You wear it 24/7, 365. And with something like that, you want to see it in action. Like, again, anyone can see leather, anyone can see whatever, because it's clothes. You can take it off at the end of the day, but people want to see the gains happening.
People want to see transformation. And this touches on something that I want to start to flesh out a bit more. Some listeners know, some maybe don't. I'm trying to author a book to speak more to the specifics of the gaining and fetus experience. And, I think because so much of gaining goes without formulation, so much of the gaining and fetus experience is not written anywhere. Hello, the amount of times I have said on this podcast, this is the first time this conversation is being recorded or put out into the internet, in the university, wherever in the world, in all of history. Because it's true, because we just don't have jack shit, right? Like, we don't have anything. Like, yeah. So part of what I want to kind of uncover is like the true factor of the gaining community in a way that people would read it and go, oh yeah, that's true. That's reminiscent of the gaining experience. So when we talk about the structure of the community, we tend to talk about it in a very linear way. There's gainers, encouragers, and then apparently everyone else is somewhere in the middle. And that's kind of left to the imagination, right? Whereas I would stipulate that actually, when you unpack what people are attracted to, why people gain or participate with gainers or visualize visually within the gaining community for pornographic purposes, I would argue that there are three core pillars that comes under. And some people only come for one, some people come for two, some people come for all three. But these are the three. Fat itself, as in not growth, not muscle, but fat itself is one. Feeding itself, not solo stuffing, but the actual two-person process of the feeding thing is number two. And number three is transformation. And I bring this up because I think the big part of what you're saying there is this transformation element. I think many of us really come here for transformation. And this is also where we love muscle gaining. We talked about this with our guest So previously. A big part of the appeal in muscle gaining is there's still the inclusion of fat, because they don't just want to be shredded, but also they want to be able to compare how scrawny and thin they were comparative to how big and beefy they are now. That's still gaining. And that's the difference between muscle gaining and bodybuilding or powerlifting, because there's a very distinct through line with what we do as fat gainers, right? And I think transformation is this big element. A lot of us have this transformation kink. Like a before and after photo, mwah, that's chef's kiss. That's, if I come across a great before and after photo, that's going to get me off for the next 6 to 12 months, because it just does the job in one image what 1,000 couldn't do.
I totally feel you, because there's a gainer that he posted several images of him just growing over the year, and again rather quickly, but it was like 7 of them in a row. Like, you see where he started and where he is now, and how it's like a almost 400-pound difference at this point, and you're like, oh, holy shit.
It's incredible. And you know, because you get to see them side by side, it very much then becomes this ironic childhood game of spot the difference. What's different here to here? There's an overhang, there's tits, there's a double chin, there's flabby arms, there's stretch marks, there's thighs, there's booty, there's dimples, there's this, there's that, and it's just, it becomes this wonderful melange of just growth. It's beautiful. But you're absolutely right, Mona. You know, it's in an instant you can compare them. And also, when you grow rapidly, you can produce this stuff more frequently that people will like. People will see this. And because you're posting frequently, oh, look at them, they're growing rapidly. There's a lot to see. We want to be invested in this and seeing what's happening. Whereas casual gaining, I don't post a before and after very often because my growth is so slow. It almost feels like there's no point. I don't have a lot of content to create this for. But let me tell you something. When I make a before and after and I see my own growth back and forth, I am filled with such a sense of satisfaction and joy that it has, no word of a lie, led me to tears. Tears of joy.
I think you've posted some like online, and I'm just like, yes, Bill, look at you. She growing, she did it. And it brings me joy, because I'm like, haha, look at her, she did it. So proud.
That comparison photo that I posted of me in leather when I was skinny and then me in leather now, and it's like, I said in the caption that when I look at the skinnier me, I'm like, I was so insecure. I didn't think that I was attractive. All this other, and then I think about how confident I have become. It's like, I don't even recognize skinny me.
You know, this circling back to that point of when you are a slower gainer, you have more opportunities to really zero in on your literal growth and improvement. And it's the exact same thing. Because your growth has been slower, that presents you more of an opportunity, not just to compare and contrast your physical body, but your spiritual body, your emotional and intellectual self. It is a comparison of more than just the flesh. It is a comparison of the soul. And I think that that is a beautiful thing. I think that can be so healing, you know, and people love that kind of before and after in general. Typically speaking, it's a weight loss one, but you see a lot of this. If you look on LinkedIn, people posting they'll do a comparison of like, this is me back when I first started at the company, and this is me now as one of the higher up managers, and I've been through an emotional journey. And you can see in the photo, it's not just the transformation of a nicer haircut and a
Yeah.
change of the name badge, it's growth as the human. Look at you going from entry level, didn't know what you were doing, wasn't too sure about your place in the world, and now look at you firmly planting your feet, leading the way, inspiring others to do the same. We love a story, we love a transformation, and that goes beyond the gaming community. But I think that is something that casual gaming has a leg up over vigorous gaming.
I agree.
We get to celebrate ourselves and our own growth so much more, I think. And within vigorous gaming, yes, there are a lot of people who love what you do because what you do is great and it cannot be taken away from you. But there then comes the question, how many people celebrate your growth as the person, not just the body?
Not just the object.
I think in a similar way, pretty privilege exists, and people who have pretty privilege often bemoan the fact that they don't know that they can trust their friends because are they only around because I'm pretty? And let's be fair, as much as you can sit there and go, ha ha ha, pretty person suffering, it is a genuine thing that's like, that's actually heartbreaking to live your life and not genuinely know if the people who are around you like you for who you are or like you because of what you are to that extent. So that's why I like this conversation. There's so much more to the meat of it than just
the meat. Oh, I will. I love to praise. So if anyone needs a dousing of love, come to Mona. Mona, come to mommy. Come to Mother Mona. I will help.
Come to Mother Mona. I love that.
Mother Mona.
To pivot ever so slightly, I want to talk a little bit more about the distinction with two styles of gaming. And I know we go with like casual and vigorous, but I think even in the way of consumption, I think you've got grazing, which tends to be the term for people maybe like myself who I don't stuff it down. I graze. Bitch, you give me an all-day buffet, I will clear it out. It'll take me all day. But that's how I like to do what I do, and I do it well, and I get the calories in, trust and believe, versus stuffing, which again, I think follows more the gainer kink. It's the glutton, the scooping up food with your hands and cramming it in and gulping it down as much as you can, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's this division there, I feel. Do you think that there is an inherent difference between one and the other in the sense that do you think people should stick to one or the other? Or do you think both are valid for different times and places?
So this is going to be personal. My response is going to be about me, and then it's going to build off of that. So for me, I can't stuff. I loathe the feeling of being that full. I've never enjoyed it. It doesn't do anything for me except go pray to the porcelain god. In which case, for me as a gainer, I'm like, that feels like it defeats the purpose, because why would I want to eat to make myself sick and lose all of what I just ate? Right? I don't want to do that. So, plus, I also have sensitive stomach in some areas. So, and like I said earlier, I listen to my body. When it says it's full, great, we'll take a break. And then we will then resume when I'm eating. So I'm more of a grazer. I'm a snacker. I like snacks. Snacks are amazing. But grazing, I think for me works best, just because then that way I'm not always eating till the point of sickness. And I think that's what a lot of stuffing is. Because like I've watched stuffing videos before, and I'm like, once that there is a very specific look of like, I'm going to die if you give me one more bite. Like, and that for me is the point where I lose interest, because I'm like, how is that pleasurable? I don't understand it. That's just me. I don't understand it. And then, but that's not to say it's not valid. If that works for you, do it. More power to you. You got a better stomach than I do. You've got a better GI system than I do, and that's okay. So there is no, I don't think one's better than the other, but I do think stuffing gives into that instant gaming fantasy, because some people, I'm like, you grew, like, from 15 minutes ago, you got big. And it's like, that does trigger the serotonin, that serotonin, dopamine, happiness release, because it's just like, whoa. So, like, it does have there is a certain allure to stuffing in that regard, but I think grazing is more economical for the average person, because not everyone can order $50 worth of McDonald's, and you work with what you got. So, like, for me, I make sure when I go grocery shopping, I stock up on snacks, because I know that's what works for me. Like, when I'm working, I just am able to dip my hand into something, grab it, instead of having to do all sorts of stuff. So I think it's more economical in that sense for grazing. But I mean, like, I sometimes stuff myself when I'm really, really in the mood for it. I will. But I stop when I'm full. That's where I think the big difference is with stuffing. Stuffing is like, you go beyond that point of fullness. You go beyond that point of your body saying stop. I think that's when you enter stuffing territory versus eating.
Sure.
Agreed. And I'm kind of the opinion that, different times, different places, like, both can apply, because I've been fed by a feeder, and in that situation, yeah, I was being stuffed. We were trying to get me to a point where I was just completely full, couldn't take another bite kind of situation. And then he gave me aftercare. And then, like, say, when I went to the Feast of the Assumption, that was a day of grazing. That was a day of just, like, I knew that I was going to be eating all day long, and I didn't want to rush into it and overdo it too soon. So I was like, at this vendor, I'm going to get something small. I'm going to get something small. This vendor, and keep going down the line until I felt like, okay, now I'm going to have, like, a larger portion. Then I'm going to have something much smaller after that, like a little dessert or whatever, and then start the process all over.
Listen, you got to get the Italian sausage. For the feast, you go full. That is a day you go all out.
And I did. And by the time the day was finally over with, I mean, my gut was just completely packed out, pronounced. Like, there was no way I could have sucked it in if I had tried.
Perfect. I mean, I went to a buffet just the other night, and again, it's the same situation where, because of where I'm at, I'm gonna go ham. I'm gonna let them have it, pack my plate, eat big, make it happen. But I will say a little of what you said, Tim, the Feast of the Assumption, like, excuse me, there is a real benefit in the social approach to gaining when you consider grazing, because it's really difficult to stuff in a public setting. Like, if we wanted to hang out and go to a really nice restaurant, like, you're not going to stuff down filet mignon. Like, that don't make no sense. But then also, filet mignon, that can work, but why not do that thing where you go to, like, let's say, a really nice Thai restaurant, right? Where you get a big old rice for the table, and then you get 15 different side dishes of just, like, pork ribs, this chicken, that lamb, the duck, the fish, the oyster, the tofu, the that, and it's just a full table just cram loaded with food. And the idea is you are just amuse-bouching off of every little thing there. And no one's going to look twice, because that's how you eat that dang food. You pig the fuck out by eating it slowly and having little tasters of everything. Same thing with a situation like the Feast of the Assumption, when there's a market in town, when you go to this type of open plant space to sample food. Get lots of little portions, wander about. It's not about calories, it's not about this, but it's a nice sociable way to approach the potential of gaining. Wanting to ask, Mona, we have a listener question. For those of us who feel too distracted or maybe don't know what to do, how would you best ensure you keep track of your goals?
I think you just and you first of all, I think it, like what I did, I knew I was not on track with my original goal. Like I know I'm not going to reach 300 quickly. I know that. So I break it down into more benchmarks. So like, no, I know my body. So maybe 5 pounds is difficult for me. Like, so I break it down to like 2 pounds. If I can do that, I accomplished it. So it's just making sure you, pun intended, make it bite-sized, make it digestible. See what I did there? um, no, but seriously, I think it's making it, take your long-term goal and break them down into short-term goals. Because and you know what? I wouldn't even say goals. Like, because a goal, like if you don't reach it, like you don't, I did not reach this goal. What does that mean? You feel bad. So I don't even use goals when it comes to this. That's me, because I know that if I don't reach that goal, it used to really impact me negatively. So like I had a scale, but I've let the batteries die because I'm like, I'm not gonna bother with that, because I know my weight, like overnight, literally in the morning I can be 206. At night, after having not eaten for like 3-4 hours, I could be 212. So that's 6 pound gain over the course of the day, right? I go to bed and wake up and I'm 205. So I somehow even lost a pound. So I'm like, you know what? Overall, I lost a pound. I'm like, you know what? I'm not even gonna bother with that. However my body works, it works. So, and for that, and to that note, listen to your body. If you're hungry, eat. If you are not hungry, maybe snack. Just make sure you have, and if you're not allergic, nuts. Nuts are magical. They are amazing. The whole point of a nut is it has all the energy needed to grow that plant. So all the fats, all the calories, everything is in the nut because it needs to grow a whole plant out of itself. So great source of easy calories. But just make sure you're comfortable with who you are. That, you know what, if I didn't meet where I wanted to go, that's okay. I still showed growth. And like both of you and me have said, our bodies are difficult. They be finicky. Sometimes the gains stick, sometimes they don't.
I totally agree with the situation that you have about goals, because I've stopped saying it too. I'm just, now I say milestones, and I've broken it down into like every 10 pounds is a milestone, right? So like 240, I'm at this current milestone. 250 will be the next one, onwards and upwards and so forth. And then when I feel that I've reached the milestone where I am the most comfortable, that's where I stop.
I like that. There's definitely something to be said about achievable goals. I made the mistake when I first started gaining. I was like, oh, I like the idea of 400 pounds. Let's do it. And I was 100 at that point. Like, what the fuck does that mean? That's 3 times my weight, and I don't know what I'm doing. Like, that's not going to help me. I think a lot of people have burnout because, in the same way of like going to the gym, people think, oh, I worked out one day, I'm going to lose all this weight. No, you won't. It is very much a process. It's a lifestyle. It is consistent commitment to change. And I think shorter term goals is definitely a good thing for people. Tim, just like you were saying. For me, I do find the scales triggering because I think, much like you were saying, Mona, if I don't hit my goals, or if I pigged out and somehow I'd lost weight, that is like the number one thing that makes me want to go off food. I'm sad, I'm depressed, I want to quit everything, I want to cry because I just don't understand why it's not happening. But that's my body. And it's not actually productive to sit there and go, why? Oh, why does this happen to me? Like, the best thing you can do is figure out how to get around it. An easy way to do that, don't even bother stepping on the scale.
Yeah.
Go more with the experience. Go more with the generalized lifestyle. Why do people think I always post about what I'm eating? You know what I mean? Like, yes, there's junk food, but I posted just recently about a nice beef stew that I made. I made a post about jacket potatoes, for fuck's sake, and that's like nearly 1,500 calories. Like, don't stress about X, Y, Z. Go with what's attainable. And if something's only slightly out of reach, it's much easier to encourage yourself to reach a little bit further to get to that than it is to encourage yourself to take a leap of faith. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be a big old stress. It can just be a nice, chill situation,
Right.
which is how I approach my gains. And I mean, to wrap this up, Mona, biggest piece of advice you'd give to a new gainer who's gaining slowly?
Advice, biggest piece I would give to a new gainer. Have fun, love yourself. Just work with your body. Change ain't gonna happen overnight. The body works best with incremental change. So when you're first starting off, I wouldn't say go gung-ho and do whatever because your body's not used to it. You got to get your body used to being bigger. You got to get your body used to eating bigger or eating more. And just try different things. I think that's what it comes down to. Love yourself, listen to your body, and just explore new avenues with cooking. James, I'm sure will condone this, but add butter, add cream, add oil. Those are all easy ways to add extra calories. And you know what? But again, do you. I mean, there's plenty of vegetarian gainers out there who are way bigger than I think I can ever get to. And then there's little old me, who's an omnivore and eats I eat anything that won't eat me first. But you know what? That's okay. Just do what you got to do. Get your body used to it. That's the big thing. Don't go silly. And then again, alluding or referring back, I think it was Tim, one of you guys said there is a time and a place for it. So like, don't go stuffing yourself right off the bat. You will get sick and it will not be fun. Graze. So I think that's where both are valid. There's a time and a place for it, for both of those. So yeah, but I think that
I love that.
That's pretty sufficient in a roundabout way.
Tim, what are your thoughts? What advice would you give to a new gainer who's slow to gains?
I would echo a lot of what Mona just said about give yourself space and give yourself time, because we talked about how frustrated you can get when you don't see the results that you thought you could get, because I feel like a lot of people who go into the gaining fetish, they think, oh, well, all I have to do is just eat a little bit more every day and I'm going to be like, 300 pounds by, 3 weeks from now. Like, no, it just doesn't work that way. Some people, I don't know. They do have the kind of blessing of whatever they put in their mouth ends up on their hips. But a lot of us are not like that. So give yourself space, time. Don't beat yourself up if you don't reach goals. In fact, don't set goals. Just set milestones, like I was talking about. And enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride, because I have also seen in my 10 plus years, well, actually 20 years in the community, but only 10 years on Grommr. I've seen sometimes young gainers come in and they do gain very, very rapidly. And then they kind of have a moment of self-doubt where they're like, I don't know if this is what I was going for. I don't know if I can keep this up. And they, a lot of them will lose the weight. Most of those people have now come back and are full-time gaining and saying, like, this is who I am. I'm not going to change this time. But, just give yourself the necessary space on the journey to get there without having to put yourself through yo-yo dieting or any other things that may come up that can be triggering for you.
There's two things I want to say to that. And the first one is an irony. Before we started recording, we were talking about, taking time off work. And like the fact that sometimes as people, you can struggle to want to take time off work even when you're sick, because you think, oh, well, I'm being a bad employee. Oh, well, I'm not supporting the team. And at the end of the day, it's like, fuck bitches. Fuck everyone. Nobody matters except you. Like, if you're dead, you will help no one. So please look after yourself. And it's the same thing here. Fuck everyone who tells you, you should gain like this. I've seen other people do this. You'd be great at that. Like, maybe you will be. I don't know. But also, there will likely be people who will come to you and be like, oh, well, I've seen someone else do this and they've grown faster than you. Like, fuck those people. Because people who neg, we don't stand here.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to say is my genuine piece of advice is find community with people who support you for the way that you gain. And by that, I mean, look for other people who gain slowly as well. Look for those people, build community with them. And when you have that moment of realizing, oh shit, I've got a brand new stretch mark. Just one, not plural, but one. Oh shit, when I sit, now my chest folds over. Now I actually have like a love handle. Now my thighs have dimples. Now I have this, now I have that. Share the photos. Talk to your friends about it, because the people who are in that same boat with you will cheer you on and champion you on. And we just need more of it. So build that community. And honestly, I think that's a great place to leave it for the episode. So Mona, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome. I was so glad to join.
Where can listeners find you online?
They can find me on Grommr, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the same username, moanappetit.
Love it. Well, that's a wrap for now here on Thicc Radio. Please remember to like and subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave a good review. If you liked this episode, the podcast, or just us in general, share it with your friends and encourage them to tune in. You can find me on Instagram and beefyfrat at stannnum.
And you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and beefyfrat at thiccymouse. You can also look us up on TikTok at Thicc Radio or our website at www.podpage.com/Thicc Radio. And if you want to submit any questions or ideas for episodes, you can reach us at thethickradio@gmail.com. So until next time, bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Let's talk about it.
Thicc Radio is a Patreon and Anchor app podcast produced by Stan and Thicky Mouse.
Mixed and mastered by stannnum.
Our artwork is provided by Lokitu.
Our theme song is provided by Spotify.